Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, watching the stars through the main window. His ship was on a routine patrol mission near the edge of human space. Earth had only learned to travel faster than light 18 months ago, and they were still exploring the galaxy around them. "Captain, we're getting a strange signal," said Lieutenant Lisa Barnes from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, a young woman with bright eyes and quick fingers on the controls. "What kind of signal?" Morrison asked, walking over to her station. "It's in multiple alien languages, sir. Our computer is trying to translate it now." Barnes frowned at her screen. "This is weird. It looks like some kind of official message." Morrison waited while the ship's computer worked. The translation system was new and still had problems, but it was getting better. After a few minutes, words began appearing on the screen. "It's an invitation," Barnes said, her voice filled with surprise. "Someone called the Galactic Council is inviting all space-traveling species to an emergency meeting." Morrison read the message carefully. It talked about a big war between two alien empires called the Xanthari and the Valkyri. The war was getting worse, and they wanted all the other species in the galaxy to help make peace. "How did they even know about us?" Morrison wondered out loud. "I don't know, sir. But they're asking for representatives from Earth to come to something called Kepler Station." Morrison thought about this. Humans had only met aliens a few times before. Their first contact had been with some traders from a species called the Draconians 6 months ago. It had been awkward, but peaceful. Now someone was asking them to help solve a galaxy-wide war. "Send this message to Earth Command right away," Morrison ordered. "Tell them we need instructions." On Earth, the message caused great excitement. In the main command center, Admiral Susan Wright read the translation 3 times before she believed it. The idea that humans were being invited to participate in galactic politics seemed impossible. "How many species are out there?" she asked. Her aide, Colonel Peter Hayes: "We don't know, ma'am. This message mentions dozens of different names we've never heard before." Wright looked at the star charts on her wall. Earth's explored territory was tiny compared to what the message described. The war between the Xanthari and Valkyri covered hundreds of star systems. Each side had billions of people. "We need our best people for this," Wright decided. "Contact Ambassador Helen Carter. Tell her to prepare for the most important diplomatic mission in human history." Ambassador Carter had spent her career solving conflicts on Earth. She had helped end wars between countries and negotiated peace deals that saved millions of lives. But this was different. This was about alien species she had never met, fighting over reasons she didn't understand. "What do we know about these Xanthari and Valkyri?" she asked Dr. Amy Foster, the scientist who would be joining her team. "Very little," Foster admitted. "Our computer analysis suggests the Xanthari might be reptilian, and the Valkyri might be some kind of energy-based life form. But that's just guessing from the language patterns." Carter's third team member was General Paul Stevens, a military officer who had studied every piece of information about alien technology that Earth had collected. He was a calm man who thought carefully before speaking. "The message says this war has been going on for 12 years, Stevens said. "That's a long time for a conflict this size." "Both sides must be getting desperate," Carter nodded. "Desperate. People make dangerous choices. If we can help them find a peaceful solution, we have to try." The team boarded the U.S. Harmony, Earth's newest diplomatic ship. It was designed to carry important people safely through space, with comfortable quarters and meeting rooms for negotiations. Captain Rick Thompson was in command of the ship, a steady pilot who had flown many of the early exploration missions. As they prepared to leave Earth, Carter received more information about the meeting. Kepler Station was a neutral facility where different species could meet safely. It was built at the crossing point of 5 major space routes, making it easy for everyone to reach. The station can house 50 different species at once, Thompson explained as they entered hyperspace. Each one has different needs for air, temperature, and gravity. It's supposed to be an engineering marvel. During the 3-day journey, Carter's team studied everything they could about galactic politics. The information was limited, but they learned that most alien species were very old compared to humans. Some had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. "We're the new kids in the galaxy," Foster observed. "Everyone else has been here much longer than us." "That might work in our favor," Carter replied. "Sometimes fresh eyes can see solutions that others miss." Stevens was less optimistic. "Or it might mean we don't understand the real problems. Walking into a conflict between ancient enemies could be dangerous." When they finally arrived at Kepler Station, Carter got her first look at the true scale of galactic civilization. The station was enormous, bigger than any human city. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded it, each one different in design and size. "Look at all of them," Thompson said softly. "Are really not alone in the universe." As the Harmony approached its assigned docking bay, Carter could see alien beings moving around the station's windows. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, while others seemed to float or crawl. The diversity was overwhelming. "This is it," Carter told her team. "We're about to represent all of humanity in our first galactic crisis. Let's make sure we do it right." The docking process was smooth, helped by the station's advanced computer systems. As the airlock opened, Carter took a deep breath and stepped into the galaxy's political arena. Behind her, Stevens and Foster followed, while Thompson stayed with the ship. The first thing Carter noticed was the noise. Dozens of different alien voices filled the corridors, speaking in languages that sounded like music, grinding metal, or electronic beeps. The universal translators in their ears turned most of it into understandable words, but the effect was still confusing. The second thing she noticed was the stairs. As the human delegation walked through the station, conversation stopped. Alien beings pointed at them and whispered to each other. Some seemed curious, others appeared nervous, and a few looked almost frightened. "They're really interested in U.S., Foster whispered to Carter. "Maybe too interested," Stevens replied quietly. A tall, gray-skinned being with 4 arms approached them. "Welcome to Kepler Station," it said through the translator. "I am Secretary Morthal of the Galactic Council. Your quarters have been prepared." "Thank you," Carter replied. "We're honored to be here and ready to help in any way we can." As they followed Morthal through the station's corridors, Carter wondered what they had gotten themselves into. The war they were supposed to help end involved billions of lives and dozens of star systems. The other species clearly had concerns about humanity's presence. But somewhere in this vast station, 2 enemy delegations were preparing to negotiate. If there was any chance of peace, Carter knew they had to try. The future of the galaxy might depend on what happened in the next few days. The adventure was just beginning. The human quarters on Kepler Station were comfortable but strange. The walls curved in ways that hurt to look at, and the furniture seemed designed for beings with different body shapes. Carter sat at a table that was too high while Stevens tested. A chair that was too wide. "At least the air is breathable," Foster said, checking her scanner. "The atmospheric mix is almost exactly like Earth's." A soft chime announced a visitor. Secretary Morthal entered, his 4 arms carrying different data tablets. His gray skin had patterns that seemed to shift in the light, and his large eyes studied the humans carefully. "I hope your accommodations are satisfactory," he said through the translator. "They're fine, thank you," Carter replied. "Can you tell us more about the situation we're here to help with?" Morthal's expression became serious. The war between the Xanthari Empire and the Volcari Federation has reached a critical point. Both sides have exhausted their normal military resources and are now using increasingly desperate tactics. He activated a holographic display that showed a three-dimensional map of local space. Red areas marked Xanthari territory, while blue showed Volcari space. The colors were mixed together in a confusing pattern of invasion and counter-invasion. The Xanthari control 40 star systems, Morthal explained. The Volcari hold 36. The fighting has been going on for 12 standard years, and neither side can gain a decisive advantage. Foster leaned forward to study the display. What started the war? Border disputes, trade disagreements, and old grudges, Morthal said sadly. The same things that have caused conflicts throughout galactic history. But this war has grown beyond anything we've seen before. Stevens pointed to several systems that were marked in black. What are those? Dead worlds, Morthal replied quietly. Planets that have been completely destroyed in the fighting. The Kelder system lost all 3 of its inhabited worlds last year. Billions of beings died. Carter felt a chill. She had seen the results of human wars, but nothing on this scale. And you believe a diplomatic solution is still possible? We must try. The alternative is the complete destruction of both civilizations, and possibly others as well. After Morthal left, Carter's team discussed what they had learned. The scope of the conflict was overwhelming, but they had handled difficult situations before. The key is finding something both sides want more than victory, Carter said. There has to be a reason to stop fighting. Maybe survival, Stevens suggested. If they keep destroying each other, there won't be anything left to fight over. Foster was studying the holographic display, which Morthal had left running. Look at this, she said. A pattern of attacks doesn't make sense. They're not fighting over resources or strategic positions. They're just trying to hurt each other. Carter looked at the display more carefully. Foster was right. The war had become about revenge rather than territory or resources. That made it both more dangerous and potentially easier to solve. The next morning, they attended their first official briefing. The main conference room was huge, with sections designed for different types of alien life. Some delegates sat in chairs, others floated in tanks of liquid, and a few hung from the ceiling in web-like structures. Carter counted at least 30 different species in the room. Most were humanoid, but there were also insect-like beings, crystalline creatures that seemed to be made of living rock, and things that looked like moving plants. Welcome, representatives of Earth, said a being that looked like a cross between a tree and a starfish. I am Chancellor Tisara of the Galactic Council. We are honored by your presence. Carter stood to respond. Thank you, Chancellor. We're here to help in any way we can. As she spoke, she noticed that many of the alien delegates were staring at her team. Some seemed curious, others appeared nervous, and a few looked almost afraid. The reaction was stronger than simple interest. In a new species, the briefing covered the current military situation. Both the Xanthari and Volcari had moved their main fleets to positions near the neutral zone. Each side was preparing for what might be the final battle of the war. The Xanthari delegation is led by Prince Zethkar, Chancellor Tisara explained. He is the Emperor's younger brother and a skilled military commander. The Volcari are represented by Federation Speaker Vokvan, one of their most respected leaders. Carter studied the holographic images of the two leaders. Prince Zethkar was a large reptilian being with scales that seemed to shift color. His armor was decorated with symbols that probably showed his rank and achievements. Speaker Vokvan was harder to understand, appearing to be some kind of energy being contained within a specialized suit. Both delegations have agreed to participate in these peace talks, the Chancellor continued, but their positions remain very far apart. The Xanthari demand full compensation for losses and recognition of their territorial claims. The Vocari insist on the return of all occupied systems and punishment for war crimes. Stevens leaned over to Carter. Those demands are completely incompatible. Neither side will accept what the other is asking for. After the briefing, Carter's team was approached by several alien delegates. Most were polite but distant, asking basic questions about Earth and human civilization. However, Carter noticed that they seemed more interested in human military capabilities than in culture or science. "How many star systems does Earth control?" asked an insect-like being from the Hive Collective. "Just one," Carter replied. "We're still new to space travel." "But you have sent armed vessels to explore other systems?" "Yes, for protection during exploration missions. Space can be dangerous." The insect being's antennae twitched in what might have been concern. "How many systems have you explored?" Carter thought about the question. "Our ships have visited about 37 different star systems in the past 18 months. The reaction was immediate. Several nearby delegates turned to stare at her, their expressions ranging from surprise to alarm. The insect being stepped back, its antennae now moving rapidly. 37 systems in 18 months? It asked. "Yes, we're trying to learn about the galaxy around us." The insect being excused itself quickly and hurried away. Carter noticed that it immediately began talking to other delegates, gesturing toward the human group. "That was strange," Foster observed. "It acted like we said something wrong." Stevens had been watching the other delegates' reactions. "I think we did. Look around. Half the beings in this room are staring at us now." Carter looked around the conference hall. Stevens was right. Small groups of aliens were having intense conversations while glancing at the human delegation. Some seemed worried. Others appeared to be arguing among themselves. "Maybe we should find out what's bothering them," Carter suggested. They approached a group of beings that looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin. These were representatives of the Draconian Trade Guild, the same species that had made first contact with Earth. "Greetings, humans," said their leader, a female named Cassara. "We meet again under different circumstances than our first encounter." "Indeed," Carter replied. "Can you help us understand something? We seem to be causing some concern among the other delegates, but we're not sure why." Cassara's expression became uncomfortable. "Perhaps you are not aware of how your recent activities are perceived by the galactic community." "What do you mean?" "Your species achieved faster than light travel only 18 months ago. Since then, you have sent armed military vessels to explore 37 different star systems. You have approached 12 different civilizations with warships. This pattern of rapid expansion is unusual." Carter began to understand. "You think we're planning to invade other systems?" "The concern has been raised. Most species take hundreds or thousands of years to develop interstellar capability. When they do, they typically explore slowly, maybe visiting a few nearby systems over several decades. But humans went from basic space travel to visiting dozens of systems in less than 2 years." Foster looked troubled. "But those were exploration missions. We're trying to learn about the galaxy." "Yes, but from our perspective, a species that achieves space travel and immediately begins rapid military expansion into multiple territories." Cassara's voice trailed off meaningfully. Stevens understood the implications. "You think we're like the Xanthari or Vocari, a species that uses military force to expand territory?" "The possibility has been discussed." Carter felt a chill as she realized what was happening. "That's why everyone has been staring at us. They're not curious about humanity. They're worried about us." "And now," Cassara added quietly, "with the two most powerful military forces in this sector exhausted from war, humanity's arrival at this peace summit is seen by many as potentially opportunistic." The full scope of the problem became clear. The galactic community didn't see humans as helpful newcomers trying to assist with peace negotiations. They saw them as a potentially dangerous military power that might be planning to take advantage of the current conflict. "We need to fix this misunderstanding," Carter said. "We're not here to conquer anyone. We're here to help." "That may be true," Cassara replied, "but proving it will be difficult. The galaxy has seen many species claim peaceful intentions while preparing for war." As the day's sessions ended, Carter's team returned to their quarters with a new understanding of their situation. They weren't. The main conference hall buzzed with nervous energy as delegates from dozens of species took their seats. Carter sat between Stevens and Foster, studying the impressive chamber that had been built to accommodate the galaxy's diverse life forms. The seating arrangement formed circles within circles, with the council members at the center and the various delegations arranged around them. Across the hall, she could see the two groups that everyone was most concerned about. The Gentari delegation occupied a section designed for large reptilian beings, their scales gleaming under the chamber's lights. Prince Zethkar sat in the center, his armor decorated with symbols of rank and battle honors. His yellow eyes swept the room constantly, as if looking for threats. The Vokari delegation was harder to understand. They appeared to be energy beings contained within specialized suits that glowed with soft blue light. Speaker Vokthan sat motionless, but Carter could see energy patterns moving through his containment suit like controlled lightning. "This is ease." Stevens whispered to Carter. "The moment we've been preparing for." Chancellor Tuzara called the assembly to order. The tree-like being's voice carried clearly through the universal translators. "We gather in the name of peace," the Chancellor announced. "The war between the Zenthari Empire and the Volcari Federation has brought suffering to countless worlds. Today, we seek an end to this conflict through words rather than weapons." The formal presentations began with each side stating their positions. Prince Zethkar rose first, his massive form dominating the Zenthari section. When he spoke, his voice was deep and filled with controlled anger. "The Volcari Federation has systematically destroyed our colonies and enslaved our people," he declared. "They have shown no mercy to civilian populations and have violated every law of civilized warfare. They seek nothing less than the complete destruction of the Zenthari Empire." Carter watched the reactions around the room. Many delegates nodded in sympathy, while others appeared skeptical. The accusations were serious, but she had heard similar claims from both sides in human conflicts. Speaker Vokthan's response was equally harsh. The energy patterns in his suit pulsed brighter as he spoke. "The Zenthari began this war with their unprovoked invasion of our sovereign territory. They have shown themselves to be a plague upon the galaxy, consuming resources and destroying civilizations wherever they expand. We fight not for conquest, but for survival." The accusations flew back and forth for hours. Each side blamed the other for starting the conflict, cited numerous atrocities, and demanded impossible concessions. Carter had seen this pattern before in human negotiations, but the scale here was staggering. They were discussing the fates of billions of beings across dozens of star systems. As the day progressed, Carter began to notice something disturbing. Every few minutes, delegates from various species would glance nervously at the human section. Some were whispering among themselves, their gestures becoming increasingly agitated. During a break, she overheard part of a conversation between two delegates from different species. They were speaking in hushed tones, but the translators picked up their words. "The humans have been silent all day," said a crystalline being that looked like living diamond. "What are they planning? Perhaps they are waiting for both sides to weaken each other further," replied a floating creature that resembled a jellyfish. "Then they could move in and claim the disputed territories." Carter felt a chill. The galactic community's suspicions about humanity were affecting their ability to participate in the peace process. If the other delegates believed humans were planning to take advantage of the war, they wouldn't trust any suggestions Carter's team might make. Foster had been taking notes on the various species' reactions. "The fear is spreading," she whispered to Carter. "Look at the body language. Half the room is more worried about us than about the war." Stevens was studying the tactical displays that showed the current military situation. "The intelligence reports are getting worse. Both sides are moving their reserve fleets closer to the neutral zone. If talks fail, we could see the biggest space battle in galactic history." The afternoon session focused on specific grievances. The Xanthari presented evidence of Vokari attacks on civilian targets, while the Vokari showed recordings of Xanthari forces destroying entire cities. The images were horrifying, even when viewed through alien eyes. "These are not the actions of a civilized species," Prince Zethkar declared, pointing to footage of destroyed Xanthari settlements. "The Vokari have proven they cannot be trusted to honor any agreement. And these are not the actions of beings who claim to fight for justice." Speaker Vokthan replied, displaying images of Xanthari warships bombarding Vokari worlds. "The Xanthari speak of peace while preparing for total war." Carter could see that the formal negotiations were failing. Both sides were too focused on past grievances to consider future solutions. The cycle of accusation and counter-accusation was making compromise impossible. Chancellor Tissara seemed to recognize the problem as well. "Perhaps we should hear from other perspectives," the Chancellor suggested. "Representatives from neutral species may have insights that could help us find common ground." Several delegates spoke, offering various suggestions for ending the conflict. Most proposed temporary ceasefires or partial territory exchanges, but none addressed the fundamental problem. The war had become about revenge and survival, not about the original causes. "The Hive Collective suggests a return to pre-war boundaries," said the insect-like delegate Carter had spoken with earlier. "Both sides should withdraw to their original territories and accept council monitoring." Prince Zethkar's scales changed color, a sign of anger among his species. "Unacceptable. The Votari have destroyed too much to simply return to the old borders. There must be compensation for our losses. The Draconian Trade Guild proposes economic sanctions against both sides until they agree to peace," offered Kesara. "Cut off trade and supplies until they are forced to negotiate." Speaker Vokthan's energy patterns flared. "Such measures would only benefit species that profit from our conflict. The Draconians seek to control galactic trade routes by weakening both our empires." Carter realized that the neutral species were almost as divided as the warring parties. Each had their own interests and concerns, making unified action difficult. The galactic community was not as cohesive as it appeared from the outside. As the session continued, more delegates voiced their opinions. Some called for military intervention to force a ceasefire. Others suggested dividing the disputed territories among multiple species. A few even proposed letting the war continue until both sides exhausted themselves completely. The Aquatic Alliance believes both empires should be placed under council administration, suggested a being that looked like a humanoid fish. Neither has shown the ability to govern responsibly. The Crystal Confederacy proposes relocating both populations to uninhabited worlds, added the diamond-like creature. Start fresh without the burden of historical grievances. Each suggestion was met with immediate rejection from both the Xanthari and Vokari delegations. The two sides might disagree on everything else, but they were united in their refusal to accept outside control or forced relocation. Carter watched the proceedings with growing concern. The neutral species were offering solutions that might work in theory, but none understood the emotional and cultural factors that were driving the conflict. They were treating the war as a logistical problem rather than a human tragedy. Another break, Chancellor Tisara approached the human delegation. The Chancellor's manner was formal, but clearly strained. "Ambassador Carter," the Chancellor said quietly, "your delegation has been unusually quiet today. Do you have no suggestions for ending this conflict?" Carter chose her words carefully. "Chancellor, we're still learning about the situation. Sometimes it's better to listen before offering solutions." "I see." The Chancellor paused, seeming to consider something. "Perhaps I should speak plainly. Many delegates are concerned about your species' intentions. Your silence is being interpreted as strategic planning rather than diplomatic caution." "What do you mean?" "There are those who believe humanity is waiting for both sides to weaken each other further. With the Zenthari and Vokari exhausted from war, a fresh military power could potentially claim significant territory." Carter felt the weight of the accusation. "Chancellor, we're not here to claim territory. We're here to help establish peace." "That may be true, but your species' recent expansion patterns have caused concern throughout the galactic community. Perhaps it would be wise to address these concerns directly." The Chancellor moved away, leaving Carter's team to consider their options. They had been trying to avoid appearing aggressive, but their silence was being interpreted as suspicious. "We need to speak up," Stevens said. "If we don't participate in the discussions, everyone will assume we're planning something. But if we speak up, they might think we're trying to take control of the negotiations," Foster replied. "We're in an impossible position." Carter looked around the conference hall at the dozens of alien species, each with their own fears and interests. The Zenthari and Vokari were locked in a deadly conflict, while the neutral species were offering solutions that neither side would accept. And somewhere, the emergency session was called at dawn. Carter had barely slept, spending most of the night reviewing intelligence reports and preparing for what might be humanity's most important moment in galactic history. The news from the fleet positions was not good. Both the Zenthari and Vokari have moved their remaining forces to the edge of the neutral zone, Stevens reported to the team. "Our long-range sensors are picking up massive energy signatures. They're preparing for a final battle." Foster was studying the tactical displays with growing alarm. "The numbers are staggering. If these fleets engage, we're looking at potentially millions of casualties in the first few hours of fighting." Carter felt the weight of the situation. The formal peace talks had failed completely. Both sides were now more focused on military preparation than diplomatic solutions. The galaxy was about to witness the largest space battle in its recorded history. Chancellor Tisara called the emergency assembly to order. The tree-like being's usual calm demeanor was replaced by obvious stress. "The intelligence services have confirmed our worst fears," the Chancellor announced. "Both empires are massing their remaining forces for what appears to be a decisive engagement." The chamber erupted in concerned voices from dozens of species. Some delegates called for immediate military intervention, while others argued for enhanced diplomatic pressure. The noise was overwhelming, with translations overlapping in a cacophony of fear and frustration. "The Hive Collective demands council intervention," shouted the insect-like delegate. "Deploy peacekeeping forces to separate the fleets before they can engage." "The Aquatic Alliance agrees," added the fish-like being. "Military action is the only option remaining." Prince Zethkar rose from his seat, his scales now a deep red color that Carter had learned indicated battle readiness. "The Zenthari Empire will not be stopped by council threats. If the Vokari wish to fight, we will give them the war they deserve." Speaker Vokthen's energy patterns flared brighter. "The Federation has prepared for this moment. We will not yield to Zenthari aggression, regardless of council intervention." Carter realized that the situation was spiraling out of control. The neutral species were panicking, the warring parties were preparing for battle, and nobody was offering realistic solutions. In the chaos, She made a decision that would change everything. "Chancellor," she said, rising to address the assembly. "May I speak?" The chamber fell silent. Carter could feel the weight of dozens of alien gazes upon her. Some were curious, others were suspicious, and a few appeared genuinely frightened. "What did you have in mind, Ambassador?" Chancellor Tusara asked carefully. "Let us talk to them," Carter said simply. "Not as mediators representing the Council, but as a species that understands the cost of war." The reaction was immediate and negative. Delegates began shouting objections, their voices overlapping in a storm of concern and anger. The humans cannot be trusted with direct negotiations. This is exactly what we feared they would attempt. They seek to insert themselves into our conflicts for their own benefit. Carter waited for the noise to subside before speaking again. "You're right to be concerned about our intentions," she said calmly. "But you're wrong about our nature." "And what is our nature?" Prince Zethkar asked, his voice filled with skepticism. "We are indeed a species that has fought many wars," Carter replied. "We've developed weapons that could destroy entire worlds. We've created conflicts that killed millions of our own people. But we've also learned something that I don't think either of your empires understands yet." "Which is?" Speaker Vok then asked, his energy patterns shifting to what might have been curiosity. "We've learned that some victories cost more than defeat. We've learned that there are no winners in total war. And we've learned that the most courageous thing a warrior can do is choose peace." The chamber was completely silent now. Carter could sense that she had their attention, but she also knew that her next words would determine whether humanity would be trusted or feared by the galactic community. "On our world, we had a weapon that could destroy all life on our planet," she continued. "We came very close to using it. The only thing that stopped us was the realization that winning a war means nothing if there's no world left to live in." Foster stood up to support her. "Every species in this room has developed advanced technology, but humans developed world-ending weapons very early in our history. We've lived with the knowledge that we could destroy ourselves for thousands of years." "And what did you do with this knowledge?" asked Kesara from the Draconian delegation. "We learned to step back from the edge," Stevens replied. "We learned to find other ways to solve our problems. Not because we became weak, but because we became wise." Carter looked directly at Prince Zethkar and Speaker Vok. "Your empires are about to engage in a battle that will destroy both of your civilizations. You'll fight over dead worlds and empty space. Is that victory worth the price?" "Prince." Zethkar's scales shifted color, becoming a darker shade of red. "Zentari do not flee from battle. We face our enemies with honor. And the Vokari do not surrender to aggression," Speaker Vok added. "We will defend our people regardless of the cost." Carter nodded. "I understand that impulse. But what if there was another way? What if you could achieve your goals without destroying everything you're trying to protect?" The chamber was tense with anticipation. Carter could feel that she was at a critical moment. The next few minutes would determine whether her approach would succeed or fail completely. "What exactly are you proposing?" Chancellor Tizara asked. "Give U.S. permission to speak directly with both military commands," Carter said. "Let us share what we've learned about the true cost of total war." The debate that followed was intense. Many delegates argued that humans could not be trusted with such responsibility. Others worried that direct contact between humanity and the warring fleets would only make the situation worse. "The humans are newcomers to galactic civilization," argued the crystalline delegate. "They lack the experience to handle such delicate negotiations." "Perhaps that's exactly what we need," replied an unexpected voice. Elder Morthek of the Ancient Coalition had been silent throughout most of the summit. His species was among the oldest in the galaxy, and his words carried significant weight. "Explain," Chancellor Tissara requested. We have all tried to solve this conflict using traditional diplomatic methods, Elder Morthic said slowly. We have offered territorial exchanges, economic incentives, and political compromises. Nothing has worked because both sides are now fighting for survival rather than profit. The ancient being paused, his age-worn features thoughtful. Perhaps a species that has faced similar challenges can offer insights that we cannot. The vote was close, but Carter's proposal was approved by a narrow margin. As the assembly dispersed, she realized that humanity now carried the hopes and fears of the entire galactic community. Jake Morrison was recalled from the UES Defiant to serve as military liaison. His experience with first contact situations and his knowledge of human military doctrine would be essential for the upcoming negotiations. This is unprecedented, Morrison said as he reviewed the mission briefing. We're about to represent humanity in the most important diplomatic contact in galactic history. The team prepared carefully for their meetings with both fleet commands. Stevens analyzed the military capabilities of both sides, while Foster studied their cultural and psychological profiles. Carter focused on developing arguments that might appeal to both empires' sense of self-preservation. The key is showing them that they have more to lose by fighting than by making peace, Carter explained to her expanded team. Both sides are thinking emotionally right now. We need to help them think strategically. Their first meeting was with Admiral Zethfor of the Xanthari Empire, Prince Zethkar's military commander. The admiral was a massive reptilian being, even larger than the prince, with scales marked by battle scars and ceremonial tattoos showing his rank and achievements. The meeting took place aboard the Xanthari flagship, a warship so large that it had its own internal ecosystem. Carter was impressed by the vessel's design, which combined military efficiency with artistic beauty. The Xanthari clearly took pride in their military traditions. So, Admiral Zethfor said, his voice a deep rumble that the translators converted into words. The mysterious humans wish to speak with us. What makes you think you can succeed where the Council has failed? Carter met the Admiral's gaze steadily. Because we understand something about war that others in the galaxy may not, Admiral. We understand the difference between winning and surviving. Explain. Admiral, our species has fought wars for thousands of years. We've developed weapons of incredible destructive power. We've created conflicts that consumed entire continents and killed tens of millions of our own people. Through all of that, we learned a fundamental truth, which is, there is no victory that justifies the extinction of your own species. The Admiral's expression shifted slightly, becoming more thoughtful. You speak of extinction. The Xanthari Empire is strong. We do not fear death in battle. Stevens stepped forward, activating a tactical display. Admiral, our analysis suggests that if your reserve fleets engage the Volcari forces, both sides will suffer casualties exceeding 60%. The final session of the Peace Summit brought attention unlike anything Carter had experienced before. Representatives from dozens of species filled the great conference hall, but all eyes were focused on the displays, showing the positions of the Xanthari and Volcari fleets. For the first time in 12 years, both massive armadas were moving away from each other instead of toward battle. Chancellor Tisara called the assembly to order with visible relief in his tree-like features. Fellow beings of the galactic community, he announced, we have achieved what many thought impossible. The Xanthari Empire and the Volcari Federation have agreed to a cessation of hostilities. The chamber erupted in surprised celebration. Many delegates had expected the talks to fail completely, leading to the largest space battle in galactic history. Instead, they were witnessing the first steps toward peace. The preliminary agreements reached through human mediation include immediate withdrawal of all military forces from contested systems, the Chancellor continued. A neutral buffer zone will be established, monitored by joint patrols, including human vessels. Carter watched the reactions around the room. The celebration was genuine, but she could also see confusion and concern on many faces. The same delegates who had feared humanity's presence were now trying to understand how the newcomers had succeeded where others had failed. Prince Zethkar rose to address the assembly. His scales had returned to their normal green color, a sign that his battle readiness had faded. "The Zenthari Empire acknowledges the wisdom of the human proposal," he said formally. "We have agreed to redirect our military focus toward external threats rather than internal conflicts." Speaker Vakhthane's energy patterns were calmer than Carter had seen them throughout the entire summit. The Vokari Federation concurs with this assessment. "We have been reminded that survival sometimes requires cooperation rather than victory." The formal presentations continued for several hours, with both sides outlining the specific terms of their agreement. The details were complex, involving territorial adjustments, resource sharing, and joint defense arrangements. But the basic principle was simple. Both empires would work together against external threats instead of destroying each other. During a break in the proceedings, Carter was approached by Elder Morthek of the Ancient Coalition. The old being moved slowly, but with purpose, his ancient eyes studying her carefully. "Ambassador Carter," he said in his gentle voice, "I must confess that when your species first arrived, many of us feared you represented a new threat to galactic stability." "And now?" Carter asked. "Now I begin to understand that perhaps we needed exactly this kind of threat. Not a military threat, but a challenge to our old ways of thinking." Foster, who had been listening to the conversation, looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "Your species thinks differently than ours," Elder Morthek explained. "Most galactic civilizations develop slowly, taking thousands of years to mature. We become cautious, traditional, set in our ways. But humans developed quickly, facing existential challenges early in your history." Stevens nodded in understanding. "You're saying that because we developed dangerous weapons so early, we had to learn wisdom or face extinction." "Exactly. Other species had the luxury of gradual development. You had to learn about consequences quickly, or there would be no second chances." Carter thought about this perspective. It was true that humanity had faced the possibility of self-destruction multiple times throughout their history. Nuclear weapons, climate change, resource depletion, and other global challenges had forced humans to develop new ways of thinking about cooperation and survival. "That's why your approach to this conflict was different," Elder Morthek continued. "You didn't try to find a compromise between their positions. You helped them see that their real interests lay elsewhere." The afternoon session focused on the practical arrangements for implementing the peace agreement. The most important element was the establishment of a joint monitoring system for the neutral zone. Human ships would patrol alongside vessels from both empires, ensuring that neither side violated the cease-fire. Captain Morrison presented the operational details to the assembly. "Earth Command has authorized the deployment of 6 vessels to support the monitoring mission," he announced. "These ships will coordinate with Zenthari and Vokari patrols to maintain stability in the buffer zone." The reaction to this announcement was mixed. Some delegates expressed approval for humanity's commitment to maintaining peace. Others seemed concerned about the military presence this would give humans in the region. "The human vessels will operate under joint command," Morrison continued, addressing the concerns. "All patrol schedules and operational procedures will be coordinated through the Galactic Council's Peacekeeping Division." Admiral Zethfer spoke from the Zenthari section. "The Empire pledges full cooperation with human patrol vessels. We have seen that their intentions are peaceful rather than aggressive." Marshal Vokrim added his agreement. "The Federation welcomes human participation in maintaining the neutral zone. They have proven themselves to be honest brokers for peace." As the formal sessions concluded, Carter realized that something fundamental had changed in humanity's relationship with the galactic community. The fear and suspicion that had greeted their arrival had been replaced by respect and, in some cases, genuine admiration. Kaizara approached the human delegation as they prepared to leave the conference hall. "Ambassador, I owe you an apology," the draconian leader said. "When we first learned of your rapid expansion into multiple star systems, we feared you were another aggressive empire seeking territory." "Your concerns were understandable," Carter replied. "From the outside, our exploration pattern did look threatening. But now we understand that you are not seeking to conquer. You are seeking to understand. There is wisdom in this approach that we had not previously considered." Foster smiled at the compliment. "We still have much to learn about the galaxy. This summit taught us as much as we taught others." Chancellor Tisara joined the conversation, his manner much more relaxed than it had been during the tense negotiations. "Ambassador Carter, the Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's future relationship with our community." Carter felt a moment of anxiety. The Council's decision could determine whether humans would be welcomed as partners or viewed as a potential threat requiring monitoring. "The Council extends a formal invitation to humanity to join as a full member," the Chancellor announced. "Your species has demonstrated both the capability and the wisdom necessary for galactic citizenship." The offer was unprecedented. Most species took decades or centuries to be considered for Council membership, going through a long process of observation and evaluation. For humanity to be invited after just one major diplomatic success showed how dramatically perceptions had changed. "We're honored by the invitation," Carter replied carefully. "But we'll need to consult with Earth Command before making such an important commitment." "Of course. Take whatever time you need. The invitation stands open." As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, they received congratulations from dozens of species. The same beings who had whispered nervously about human intentions were now praising their diplomatic skills and commitment to peace. Dr. Foster was amazed by the transformation. "A week ago, half the galaxy was afraid of us. Now they're inviting us to join their government." "It shows how quickly perceptions can change," Stevens observed. "Sometimes the most important victory is proving that you don't want to fight." The journey back to Earth gave Carter time to reflect on what they had accomplished. The immediate crisis had been resolved, with both warring empires stepping back from the brink of mutual destruction. But the implications went far beyond ending one conflict. "We've changed how humanity is perceived in the galaxy," she told her team. "We're no longer seen as a potential threat, but as a stabilizing force." Morrison was studying the patrol schedules for the neutral zone monitoring mission. "The responsibility is significant. We'll have ships operating in some of the most sensitive areas of local space." "And that's exactly why it's important," Carter replied. "We're not just keeping the peace between the Xanthari and Vakari. We're proving that humans can be trusted with galactic security." When they arrived at Earth, the news of their success had already been transmitted ahead. Admiral Wright met them at the space station with obvious pride and relief. "Outstanding work," she said to Carter. "You've not only helped end a major war, but you've established humanity as a respected member of the galactic community." "What's Earth's position on the Council membership invitation?" Carter asked. "The government is very interested. We're putting together a formal response, accepting the invitation and proposing specific areas where human expertise might be valuable." As Carter looked out at the stars from the station's observation deck, she realized that humanity's role in the galaxy had been fundamentally transformed. They had arrived at the Peace Summit as unknown newcomers, causing panic simply by showing up. They were leaving as partners in maintaining galactic stability. Captain Morrison joined her at the window, watching as the UES Defiant and other human vessels prepared for their first patrol missions in the neutral zone. "Do you think we made the right choice?" he asked.